Percy's Poltergeist. And Driver says they knock about everything in sight and make dreadful noises as they move about. It sounds most frightening. Percy, I think your Driver's been watching too much of that telly-something, puffed Thomas. Whatever this poltergeist thing is, it certainly doesn't frighten me. Toby looked over mischievously. Oh, that's right. Only regular ghosts scare you. Pah! Hissed Thomas crossly. Anyways, everyone knows ghosts don't exist. They're just tall tales made up by silly little engines with bad manners. Percy said no more, but winked at Toby. Unfortunately, Percy's talk of poltergeists meant that word about his ghost train joke went around again, much to Thomas's annoyance. Halloween's coming soon, said the station master at Farquhar. Careful you don't get frightened by the ghost engine again. Thomas was most indignant. This branch line has a penchant for telling the most unamusing jokes, fussed Percy that afternoon. Your ghost train trick wasn't funny the first time, and it certainly isn't funny now. Well, it's not like you could do any better, retorted Percy smugly. You're too stupid to think of anything clever. Stupid indeed, fumed Thomas to Mavis later that day. That Percy is much too big for his wheels. Quite so, agreed Mavis, who had grown fed up with Percy's rather colorful criticisms of her shunting. Perhaps we should teach him a lesson. Well, whatever it is, it'll have to be a good one, frowned Thomas. It's hard to teach Percy anything with how stubborn he is. Then Thomas overheard some workmen exchanging ghost stories. And the more he listened, the more his frown shifted into a devious smirk. At Farquhar, Percy was collecting some trucks when Thomas arrived. Say, Percy, I think your driver was onto something with that whole poltergeist talk. Percy was puzzled. Oh, really? How so? I heard a workman at the quarry talking about one right here on my branch line. Thomas paused dramatically. It haunts our shed at night, slamming the door shut and knocking over whatever's nearby. And it makes the most horrifying wailing sound. Percy laughed. If you thought you could scare me with that pathetic story, you're stupider than I thought. Oh no, insisted Thomas. It's real. The man sounded quite serious. Well, if it's real, why haven't I seen it before? No one knows who it is, when it comes out, or why, said Thomas. All they know is that sometimes things happen that can't be explained otherwise. Well, whatever this poltergeist is, I'm not scared of it, boasted Percy. We'll see about that, chuckled Thomas as he rolled away. That night, Percy was delayed at the harbor, and he arrived back at the shed late. The other engines were still busy, and he was all alone. Stupid Thomas, muttered Percy, thinking he could scare me with that rubbish poltergeist story. There's no such thing. As if to goad the spirit, he began to moan and groan in a spooky fashion. Where are you, ghosts? Come and get me! I'm not afraid! As if on cue, the shed doors swung open and slammed shut almost immediately. Percy was taken aback. Thomas? He called. No reply came. Then a lantern on a nearby crate toppled over, shattering into pieces. The door slammed shut again, the lights flickered, and a wailing sound filled the air. Percy was starting to feel very frightened. Then he felt someone's hand on his controls. "Who's there?" he demanded. No one replied. Slowly, Percy began to roll out of the shed. "Help!" he cried, but there was nothing he could do. He shut his eyes, not knowing what would come next. When he opened his eyes, he found he had come off at the points leading out to the branch line. Then everything went quiet. No lights flickered, no door slammed, and no hand rested on Percy's controls. At that moment, Thomas and Mavis arrived. "Percy? What happened?" "You let your driver into my cab and derail me, that's what!" exclaimed Percy crossly. Thomas was puzzled. "But the driver's right here. We've just come down from the quarry." "Then who is at my controls?" Percy trailed off, a horrified look of realization on his face. "What's wrong, Percy?" asked Mavis. Percy didn't reply, but Thomas understood. You mean that story was true?" In the distance, the shed doors closed with one final slam. And the yard once again fell into total silence.